Business owners of Reddit, what's the most obnoxious reason an employee quit or had to be fired over? Medical clinic. An employee told a patient he wants to know what she tastes like. Doesn't get much worse. My wife and I started a small software company 20 years ago. She's the manager and does sales and HR. I do the programming. Anyway, we hired a programmer one time, and the first day on the job I spent the whole morning with him going over our development philosophy, how we do source control, etc., and then showed him an overview of our applications and how we build them. Along the way he was highly critical, pointing out what he considered flaws in everything. After lunch he goes back in to see my wife. He obviously didn't know we were married, we don't share surname, and at work we keep pretty much to ourselves. He says to my wife, "You know how to fix this company? You need to fire that other guy." We still laugh about that one. I used to own a bakery and a woman quit because she blamed her yeast infection on a bad batch of yeast I bought from China. I may be a guy, but I don't think that's how it works. Tool and die shop owner here. One of our machinists would go out for lunch and slam back 3 to 4 beers every day. When I found out, I told him he can't drink beer at lunch. He said it was his time and what he did at lunch was his business, not mine. The next day he came back from lunch smelling like beer. I let him go on the spot. A few years later he showed up in my office asking for his old job back. He said that he was an alcoholic back then and was sorry for his behavior. He was now sober and needed a job. I hired him on the spot and it worked out great for 5 or 6 years. Then he started drinking again and I had to let him go a second time. I have no idea how he is doing now, but I often wonder. He was a great machinist and a nice guy when he was sober. The one that instantly jumps to mind was the woman who was fired day 2 of a call center training course because she wouldn't stop touching herself. Not sure how she got through HR screening. This was for a wireless phone company too, not a chat line or anything. Edit, since people requested details. It was really somewhat sad. She was late 30s, early 40s, and I don't think this was an employment scam or anything of the like, and more likely just a mental compulsion or drugs. It was really not that subtle, but done under a shawl or scarf thing draped over her lap. Politely and quietly asked to stop by the trainer, then stopped momentarily but started up again 15 to 20 minutes later. Oblig, I'm not the business owner as well, it was a multinational corp, but really they don't get the best stories anyway. I regret nothing. Woman was using company FedEx to deliver purses for her ETSE shop. Pawn shop employee stole $400 from the cash register, then realized that there were video cameras. He had no idea where the security footage was stored, so in order to cover his tracks he set the store on fire. He actually ended up getting pretty badly burned in the process and went to jail right after the hospital. We hired someone to do video or photo media work. After a certain point he felt it was selling out and didn't want to do media commercially. He wanted to do business stuff. We asked him which role he would like. If he picked his role, we'd try it out. If he didn't, he would quit. He decided to quit, he couldn't come up with a role. I used to manage a store in the mall. One of my employees, I'm pretty sure, was cheating on her husband with a mall security guard. I would come by on my days off and he'd scurry out in a fluster. I never mentioned it, but the guy was coming by all the time to the point that it was keeping her from doing her job. Finally we had a work meeting and I said in a very non-accusatory way something like this. I know it gets slow in here during the week and I'm guilty of it myself, but from now on I need everyone to keep personal visits to a minimum or during your lunch break. She stands up and starts screaming at me. How dare I accuse her? I'm a bitch. She quits. She continued to call me and leave me harassing voicemail for a while too. Not my business. Not my business, but my dad's. He hired predominantly people with criminal records and literally all they had to do was inspect rental cars for damage as the cars left the lot and keep their noses clean. You could do pretty much anything you wanted on your downtime with no complaints from my dad, as long as he didn't get any complaints from the owners of the car lot. One day one of the supervisors for the car lot I worked for walks out and asks me for my dad's number. Supervisor had caught a guy stealing gas from the property. He even had security camera footage of it happening. Dude was instantly fired. The company I work is a contractor for a giant corporation and we go to different stores to do work. This new guy we hired seemed normal at first, but it turned out he was a complete fucking idiot. So one day he goes on site with one of the senior employees to shadow him. This genius thought that because we did work for the giant corporation we could just eat anything off the shelves and from the refrigerators free. Well, employee saw this and was like, WTF are you doing? You need to pay. And manager comes. This guy then started fighting with the manager, then got in his car after and drove off. Needless to say, his ass was fired the next day. I worked for a boutique hotel, you know, small, cute, expensive AF, as an ops manager. Basically, unless the area manager had to come in, I was the law. I get a frantic call on my downtime from an employee claiming our overnight guy tried to assault him. I have a sigh as the guy freaking out is notorious for being a drama queen. I load up the security camera on my home PC, go to the time frame, and holy shit. Our night guy legitimately lunged at his coworker and tried to strangle him. Luckily a desk was between them and that gave the victim time to bolt. Instantly felt like a dick for doubting him. Well, this is when I call in the area manager. We show up at the ass crack of dawn and speak with the dude who made the attack, and he claims he didn't do it. We show him the video and I shit you not, he responds with, I don't recall the events of that evening. We fired him on the spot. What started the fight, you ask? Well, the victim had done extra work to make the attacker's shift easier. The attacker felt like this was an insult to his work ethic. Oh, and I got multiple reference requests from similar hotels asking for a good reference. I simply said I wasn't able to provide a positive reference as legally that was all I could say. I know somebody they had to take a drug test, so he brought a little sample jar of drug-free piss with him, went into the toilet, came out, gave the fake sample to whoever was doing the test and got fired on the spot. The sample was cold, fresh piss is hot. Had a guy who we hired who showed a lot of potential, sales. He was a little arrogant and had a good-sized ego, but wasn't enough of a problem. He was very good at sales and eventually it went to his head. He started showing up late all the time, leaving early, cutting corners where he could. The final straw came when he showed up late and someone spoke up about it to him. He decided the best choice of words he could yell were, I make the most sales and I have the biggest dick, so you can all fuck off. He was fired on the spot. Customers thought it was pretty funny though. I fired a guy because he said he couldn't come to work because it was raining and he had just washed his car the day before. Back when I had my translation business, I hired a guy to seek out contracts for me. I'd pay him 20% finder's fee. Instead of sending the finished project to a client, he accidentally sent naked pictures of himself. I learned of it when my client forwarded me the mail half an hour later, including the multiple glorious cock shots. I don't even committing no notable offense but faking incompetence or causing inconvenience in order to be fired and receive severance pay. Edit. Yes, I'm familiar with Better Call Saul. I love it. But as it turns out, and hold on to your seats for this, that being an asshole for money is not exclusive to the show.